Why are you mowing your lawn now? In the middle of the day when it's the hottest time? You did this only yesterday! Hello everybody and welcome back to A Royal Reader. My name is Cece and today I'm going to be discussing my worst reads of 2020. Now, luckily, this list isn't going to be that long. I have 9 books on this list, so I think out of like the 60 something books that I've read this year, that's not too bad in my opinion. So some of these I have already mentioned in my previous videos, so if you are interested at all in seeing those, do be sure to check out some of my previous videos. I will be sure to link them down in the description box. I think it was some of my wrap-ups that I did for the year, so yeah. So we'll start off this list with one that I have mentioned before and it will come as no surprise to any of you, and that is going to be These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. This I thought was going to be a really fun, sort of sweet but mysterious contemporary fantasy that follows our main character, Hannah. In this, we follow our main character, Hannah, who is dealing with a bad breakup between her and her girlfriend, Veronica. They are both witches, and they are both elemental witches, which means they can control the elements around them. And while Hannah is dealing with this breakup, there is a bunch of attacks that happen to both her and Veronica. And these attacks are what they believe to be the work of a blood witch. So they are both very, very confused and scared about this whole situation, and they have to decide whether or not they want to tell their family and their coven. While Hannah is also dealing with this, she is also dealing with the fact that she may have feelings for the new girl who's just moved to town. So this sounds like it's going to be a really fun and exciting book, but unfortunately it just fell really flat for me. This read a lot younger than what I was expecting it to. The characters in this are supposed to be 17 to 18 years old, but the way that they talk and their actions sort of make them a little bit younger and sort of read a little bit like they're more like 13, which did not interest me at all. And I feel like, why are you mowing your lawn now? In the middle of the day when it's the hottest time? You did this only yesterday! I'm sorry if you can hear my neighbor doing something to his lawn. I don't know. He does this like 4 times a week. It's so annoying. You know what? We're just gonna push through. We're just gonna push through, okay? It'll be fine. I will try my best to talk loudly and to also talk and fix this in post-production. Far out, man. Anyway, I just felt like this book was very like young, and it felt like a bad Hallmark movie. And like, don't get me wrong, I love Hallmark movies. They are like the best Christmas movies ever, because like they're so fun and like sort of cringy at the same time, but it's just like you just get all the feels and it's amazing. But this just, it was far too dramatic for what was happening and it just didn't feel right. So next on my list is one that I also discussed in the same video that I mentioned that book, and that is going to be Dark and Deepest Red by Anna Marie McLemore. Yeah, McLemore. So this is supposed to be a sort of retelling slash recount slash reimagining of the dancing plague that struck back in like 17th century. This book has 2 different timelines. One is set back in the 17th century and the other one is more present day. We don't actually get a timeline, I think. It's set in the present some point in time. So in this we have our main character, Lala, who is set back in the 17th century. She is in the place where the dancing plague strikes first, and in doing so she goes through a series of events that end up getting her marked as a witch, and the townspeople think that she is the one who's actually started this whole dancing plague and stuff like that. She also has a relationship with a trans character, which I found quite interesting, and I wanted to find out more about the trans character rather than following along with Lala. There is that timeline, and then we have our second timeline which follows Rosella and Emile. they are both sort of connected in a way. Rosella's family makes these red shoes. They also make a whole bunch of other shoes. They're cobblers, but they are mostly known for their red shoes that supposedly bring people like confidence and the ability to like do things that they thought they weren't going to do. So it just makes them feel more confident. And when Rosella decides to put on a pair of shoes, the red shoes, she is stuck dancing and she can't stop. And then Emile is sort of intertwined in this in a way that I don't want to say because it does spoil the book. But I have been obsessed with the folklore and the folktale around the dancing plague and the red shoes whole story, and I thought this was going to be really, really fun and interesting, and it just wasn't. The two timelines just made it really difficult to try and understand, and there was a lot of just back and forth between Lala and like her thoughts, and I just really, really did not enjoy it, and I just really, really upset about it. And the fact that you also don't get to find out any information about the dancing plague at all, like the author does not go into like how it could have started, or like doesn't give any sort of like background to the story, it just sort of happens. So that was also kind of a bit of a flop for me because I really wanted to see how she was going to incorporate it and like if she was going to give that story more substance. But unfortunately I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars, so yeah. Next is one that I read back in like sometime in March, I think, possibly, maybe even earlier than, no. I don't know when I read this book, but I read it and I was thoroughly confused and just very, very uncomfortable. And that's going to be Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. This is the first book in the something series, the Realm series. I don't know. It's part of like a 7-book series, and the tagline on this says it's perfect for fans of Game of Thrones. I am a massive fan of Game of Thrones, the TV series. I have not read the books yet, but I do plan on it. So in this we have a large cast of characters. So in this we have a main character called Cleo, and then we have the next main character who is called Jonas, and then we have the 2 siblings called Magnus and Lucia. So those are our main characters that we follow. There's also a character in here that's meant to be some sort of mythical being. I think he's supposed to be like some sort of god. I'm not entirely too sure. But in this there is a whole bunch of like circumstances that makes these characters meet, and it's just very, very odd and also boring because not much happens in this. There's a whole lot of traveling back and forth, and there's a lot of like meetings and discussing, you know, is that person going to end up having powers? Is that person going to go to jail because they killed someone? Is just, why do I have feelings about my sister? Game of Thrones, yeah, we have the incest. Ugh. I felt really uncomfortable reading the sort of like romantic feelings that Magnus does have for his sister Lucia. It just, I don't know what it was, but he was really, 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 really creepy, and I just really didn't like this. The characters, I liked none of them, like none of them. The ending was also just really, really rushed in my opinion. Like this is supposed to be, I think, a 7-book series, and the ending was really rushed, and I felt like it could have been brought forward more. Like that whole ending bit, like the whole last plot of the book happens within the last like 60 pages instead of it being through like, you know, maybe from like, this is a 400-page book. I feel like the last plot should have been at least at the 250 mark or at least the 300 mark. So yeah, very confused, didn't like any of the characters. Next on this list is one that I have spoken quite a lot about with my disgust and discomfort with this book, and that is going to be Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. This is supposed to be, it was marketed as a Les Mis retelling. Let me tell you, this is not a Les Mis retelling. It's not, okay? It's not. Retellings are supposed to have something that will make you like be able to see the story that it's retelling. Like if it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, a girl will get locked up in a castle with a really bad guy. You know it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This Les Mis, yes, it does have a wide range of characters, but it also mainly follows the character of Jean Valjean, who is dealing with the fact that he has no one left in his family and he is escaped from jail, prison, one or the other, and he is watching over this young girl. You know what? I actually think that's my dad. My dad's currently mowing the lawn. I'm sorry. I don't know why he's doing it in the hottest part of the day, but he is, so we're just going to try our best to ignore it. I'm going to talk loudly. Today was not a good day to film. Anyway, in this story, we follow our main character called Nina. She is living with her father and her younger sister. In this world, there is a very sophisticated sort of underworld that has a whole bunch of different guilds. I can't even remember what half of them are. There's like 12 of them, I think, or holy crap, okay. These are all the guilds. So there's quite a lot of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so there's only 9 guilds. Nina's father ends up selling the youngest daughter to the Guild of Flesh, which is basically the prostitutes. So Nina decides that she's going to try and rescue her sister, and in doing so, she decides that she is going to join the Guild of Thieves, because she is apparently really talented in thievery and robbery and stuff like that. That's only the first like 20 pages of the book. We then have a like 2 to 3 year time skip, and then we follow Nina, who is looking after her cousin Cosette, and their father is about to do the same thing to Cosette that he did with his youngest daughter. So Nina, who is quite well versed in the world of the guilds and stuff like that, she then takes Cosette to live with the Guild of random invisible people, I don't know, the ghosts or whatever, I don't know. She takes Cosette to a guild to be protected, and it sort of then sparks this whole big sort of civil war between all the guilds, because it is the first time that anybody has gone against the guild leader and like sort of stealing his property, I guess you could say. It then goes on a really big whirlwind, and it's just, this book is nothing like Les Mis whatsoever, apart from the fact that there is a couple of characters who have the same names, and then there's also a particular scene at the barricades. That's literally the only thing that makes this book similar to Les Mis in any way, shape or form, as well as the fact that it's also set in the French Revolution period. So, really didn't like this. The writing was horrible. Nina is such an unlikable character, it's not funny. She makes such stupid mistakes, and I wouldn't say that she's a morally grey character, but she just makes stupid mistakes for the fact that she is just stupid. She also strings along a series of guys that sort of have a crush on her, and she uses them to her advantage, and I don't like it. The next 3 books that I have on my list are ones that I think are not exactly the worst reads, but they are definitely more of like the disappointing reads that I have. The first one is going to be Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I honestly thought I was going to love this book. I actually thought that this was going to be a 5-star read from what everybody was saying about this book, and unfortunately it ended up as a 2.5. So in this book we have a main character, Elizabeth, who is a library apprentice. In this world, there is a bunch of libraries that look after these sort of like grimoires that are from sorcerers, and these books can sort of like come to life on their own. She is trained so that when a book decides to like, you know, become some sort of monster, she's able to defeat it and like keep the world safe, basically. One fatal night, there is this book that decides it's going to turn into a monster, and it just ravages the library that she's in, and in doing so it kills a person. Elizabeth does kill the book, but she's also then blamed for the death that the book made. Because the book was a very important sorcerer grimoire, whatever, she's taken to be held for a trial in front of the sorcerers of this world, and the people who come to escort her from the library to the sorcerer's place where she has to be trialed for is of course our other main characters, Nathaniel Thorne and his demon Silas. Nathaniel is the sort of like most eligible bachelor sorcerer guy. The relationship in this was non-existent until the very last, like, you know, 50 pages of the book, and also this book was way too long. The whole ending just like not even the whole ending, just like the whole, Elizabeth is on like a sort of, while Elizabeth is waiting for her trial to happen, she discovers that there is this couple of things that are not sitting right with her within the whole world and the sort of library stuff, because there is a whole bunch of attacks on the library and she is not so certain that everyone is safe. So she goes on a mission to try and find out why and how and who, and it just, that part of the story takes up the main section of the book, and it did not need to be that long. We figured out who the bad guy was straight away, but then there was this whole other like boring stuff that happened for the rest of the book, and it just didn't need to happen. And as I said before, the relationship was non-existent until the very last end. Like, yes, we could tell that there was a sort of connection between Elizabeth and Nathaniel, but it just didn't go to where it needed to go as quick as it needed to go, and it just, I was really disappointed by this book. Really disappointed by this book. You could see the relationship between Nathaniel and Silas was a lot more developed than what this relationship between Elizabeth and Nathaniel was, and it just, I would rather read a book about Nathaniel and Silas. So next is another disappointing read for me, and that is going to be The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. If you guys watched my reading vlog, I didn't do it specifically for this book, it was a weekly reading vlog, but I will leave that up in the eye for you to check out. I gave it 3 stars, so it's not the worst of the year, but it definitely is probably the most disappointing of the year. I really thought I was going to love this because V.E. Schwab just hyped this book so much. She talked about how this was her baby and how she has spent 10 years writing this book. That has to mean it's going to be good, right? The writing of this book is beautiful. It is some of the most lyrical prose I have ever read in my life. I loved it. So in this we follow our main character Addie LaRue, who on the eve of her wedding decides that she does not want to get married. She does not want to have to live her life in a village that everybody knows each other's name and she lives there until she dies. She wants to be able to go and see the world and experience new things rather than being cooped up at home. So she runs away. She runs into the forest, and in her desperate need to escape, she starts to pray to the gods. Now, there is a saying in this book that you should not pray to the gods who answer after the dark. Unfortunately, with her desperation, Addie prays to the gods who answer after dark. And then a demon answers her prayers and says, yes, I can give you the freedom that you want. Of course. You'll just have to give me your soul afterwards. And she's like, yeah, fine, whatever, do it. I don't care. Give me my freedom. So he does. But then everybody forgets her. So the twist to Addie's gift that she wants is that no one will ever remember her name. No one will ever remember who she is, and she cannot say her name, she cannot leave a mark, she can't write, she can't paint, she can't do anything that will let her leave a mark on the world. Even her footprints disappear as she walks through the snow. So it is a very lonely existence, but with pure will and just stubbornness, Addie refuses to give up and give her soul to this devil. So we follow Addie through 300 years until present day 2014 in New York City, where Addie runs into a bookshop owner called Henry, and he actually remembers her. For the first time in 300 years, he remembers her. So that's where our story sort of takes place. The writing in this is beautiful, as I said. And even though it's not exactly a romance story, there is elements of romance between both Addie and Henry, as well as Addie and the devil. So I honestly was more interested in the relationship between Addie and the devil, because I felt like there was more of a connection between the two. Like, we do get to see the connection between Addie and Henry grow throughout the book, but it felt not forced, but it just felt like it was too quick. There are sort of circumstances throughout the book that make you realize why it's so quick, but it still didn't sit right with me. And I just, like, yes, I did cry at the end of the book. I was affected, but it also made me really angry. I did not like how this book ended at all. Yeah, I don't know. This is definitely a slow moving book, so I do want to just warn you guys that if you are going to pick this up and you are more interested in like plot or even just characters, I guess, you know, be careful picking this up because it is really, really slow, and it is definitely more of like a character study than it is like an actual story, if that makes sense. A lot of the sort of writing of this book is about Addie and Henry's both inner monologue and the stuff that they are feeling and like their thoughts and their memories and stuff like that. So it's definitely, as I said, a character study rather than an actual book. And yeah, I was disappointed, which is really upsetting because I love V.E. Schwab. I love almost every single book she writes except for this one. So yeah. And the last disappointing book that I have on this list is going to be The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. This I thought was going to be a new favorite vampire book, but unfortunately it just didn't do it. You know, it didn't do that thing that you want. In this book, we follow our main character Celine, who is traveling to New Orleans in 1872. Once she is there, she gets sort of caught up with this group of people that the town has lovely dubbed the Court of Lions. So she gets caught up with them, as well as a murder. So she knows the person who is murdered and is somehow caught up in this whole thing, and is also having to deal with her attraction to bad boy leader of the Court of Lions, Sebastian Saint Germain. So the story, it sounded interesting and there were parts of it that I was intrigued. There is chapters throughout this book that is written from like the killer's perspective, which I thought was quite interesting, and it's also written in a different like point of view. So the most of the book that's written from Celine's point of view is written as, I think it's third person? Yeah, it's written in third person, and then the killer's chapters are written in first person. So I think that was the first time I've ever read a book that had like dual perspectives in it that were written in two different points of view, if that makes sense. That was interesting, and the relationships were okay. They was just sort of like a little bit insta-lovey, but it's not insta-love, if that makes sense. Like, they just got together really quickly, basically. And the main character, she has this deep, dark secret that she constantly reminds you that she has. And you sort of get to know about it as you read throughout the book, and she sort of like tells you. But it was just really annoying to constantly like hear her say, oh, I have this deep, dark secret that I have to keep hidden because I can't make friends because of it. And it was just like, yeah, okay, like, just really annoying. She was constantly saying that she had this deep secret that she couldn't tell anyone, and it was holding her back from like making friends or, you know, going out to dinner with somebody because they might find out she has this deep, dark secret. And I'm like, just go out to dinner. The ending though did surprise me a little bit, and I am going to pick up the next book in a hope, with the hopes that it's actually going to be better than what this was. Now this was okay. I gave it 3 stars. I just wish it had more. So those were all the books that I read this year that were either disappointments or my worst reads of 2020. Let me know what you guys thought of them down below in the comments. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree, but please be nice. These are my opinions. If I bashed a book that you absolutely loved, I do apologize. It's just my own personal taste. Let me know what some of your most disappointing reads were for 2020, and I would love to chat about them. So yeah, be sure to check out my Twitter and Instagram. They are always linked down in the description box for you to go and have a little follow on, so we can discuss books and things like that. I would love to have you guys follow me. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, as well as hitting the subscribe button just down below. I would love for you guys to subscribe. I would love just to have more people to talk about books with. So yeah, so that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you guys in another video later on.